Hello everyone, Mr. John here from Areteem Intelligence Planet, doing a quick demo today of the English writing component of the Summer 2021 STEAM Camp. Just as a little bit of an introduction to the camp and to the subject here, when we're thinking about English writing, the whole goal of this week-long component is going to be learning the fundamentals of creating your own short story. We of course are going to do some practice with grammar and kind of writing, right? What's the best way to present your ideas, organize your story, and we really want to introduce students to and get them practicing the idea of editing and reviewing their stories. So a big component is going to be doing a draft of the story, going back, reading it, sharing it with others, reading other people's stories, discussing amongst the students how to improve and kind of making changes and improvements from there. This is going to be a part of the summer 2021 on-site camp. So this is kind of the STEAM topic for week 1 of the camp there. And we're going to be focusing in this week on creative stories. So we're going to be doing fiction stories here, right? So you could focus on short stories that are kind of telling true events or making an argument, but our focus is going to be letting the students be a little bit more creative, have a little fun, tell a story, maybe an action story or an adventure story. And as part of the whole week, they will plan out their stories, write their stories, edit their stories, and present the story. So a big component is that presentation. We want to have a final product, a final project that the students are working on and showing off by the end of the week there as well. Quick sample 5-day schedule. Right, so on day 1, we do kind of a little bit of introduction to the storytelling, get students thinking about what type of story do they want to kind of tell, right? Where is this story going to take place? And then kind of starting to outline the story. Now I want to kind of highlight this outlining because it is important that we want to be planning, right? So a big thing people oftentimes think about when they think about writing is they just think about the actual physically writing things down process. But that's not always how something works, right? You're going to do some planning. You're going to need to discuss things like the plot and the characters. So in day 2, we have kind of more discussion, again, focusing on what those characters are. What are they going to be doing in this story? Why are they going to be doing things in this story? And kind of continuing to outline along the way as well. Now, of course, we want to be having students write most of the days, whether it's just their story or other things too. So we're going to typically have daily writing prompts on most of the days, just getting students writing, right? Of course, outlining and organizing is good, but we also want to just practice writing stuff down. Then we can kind of review those things. We can review grammar, right? So grammar, learning a little bit more about the English language is important there as well. And as I mentioned, a big thing at the end then is going to be finalizing a story, right? So we have a final story, we have kind of a final story in presentable form. So students can share their stories with each other, read stories to each other, and kind of celebrate the work they've done, the kind of project they've done throughout that week. Okay. So just in terms of a quick demo and stuff here, I want to just kind of share a couple of resources that we've used in the past for English writing and probably will use again. Right, so one of the big things is kind of talking about plots and outlines of the story, right? So we really want to focus on students kind of thinking about their story on as a whole and coming up with a plan that they can then fill in the details. So one of the standard ways to organize a kind of story is in this kind of exposition slash beginning, then you have the climax, and then you have kind of the resolution and the ending. So there's some kind of extra things put in here, right? Falling action, rising action, right? So the idea is you introduce your story, you build up the tension, right? The rising action is kind of setting up what are the kind of bad things, what are the kind of conflicts that need to be resolved, all pushing towards the climax of the story, right? This is your kind of big action scene or big battle or, right, big argument or kind of the character overcoming something in their adventure. And one of the things that kind of students make a mistake on early, or kind of even big storytellers or writers make a mistake on, is that you can't just end with the kind of climax, right? Readers need some sort of wrap up. They need some sort of kind of falling action where some things get explained, right? We learn maybe what happens to the characters after this. And so we have this kind of building up of the tension to the climax, and then kind of slow cooling down, the falling action until kind of our resolution and ending. So these things, right, are of course just the big picture idea. There's a lot of things going on in between all of these stages. It's not like the climax has to be in the middle of the story, right? Typically, the climax is almost at the end of the story. And then this falling action and resolution ending kind of happens kind of quickly that way. That's not always the case, but that kind of typically is how things are organized. And right, it's good to start thinking about what's going to be happening. That allows you to kind of understand the characters' goals, motivations along the way, and kind of the main points of the plot so you can start filling in the details from there. And this kind of can be creative as well, right? Maybe you have a couple of stories that the students, right, we might have them do a couple of these things, and maybe they share them with others, and you can kind of ask questions. Well, why does this happen, right? Oh, this is interesting. Can you tell me more about this portion? And then that helps with the kind of further outlining before the students actually start writing the story from there. Now, the other thing I want to kind of do a quick demo of here too is, right, a little bit of kind of grammar and writing practice too. So mixed in between the kind of writing, of course, if you want to improve on writing, one of the best ways to do this is just writing, right? Writing stuff down, practicing, reviewing it, editing it, stuff like that as well. But right, it's good to have some fundamentals and review some fundamentals here as well in terms of grammar, spelling, right? Talk about kind of the formats of a sentence where you might have, right, a subject, a verb, and kind of organizing things that way and making sure you're not making errors that way too. So here we have a sample kind of grammar exercise talking about adjectives, right? So just kind of filling in, understanding what the sentence means, and kind of making sure that you're saying the word in parentheses correctly. So our trip to New Mexico was even something about wonderful than I expected, right? So here, right, if we're saying even, right, we're kind of saying this is a comparison now. So we might say something like more wonderful in this kind of first example there, right? The mountains there were the kind of most beautiful I have ever seen, right? So this is still a comparison, but now it is a kind of comparison where this is the most beautiful mountains they have seen. We saw Wheeler Peak, the highest point in the state, right? And we visited a mine shaft that was deeper than a mile, right? And so these are all things that probably, if you've done enough reading, sometimes you can just kind of guess and say, this is what sounds best in this scenario. But these are also good things to discuss with students and kind of make sure that they understand why these are the cases, when would we use deeper versus deepest, etc., along those lines. So, when can students join this STEAM camp? We actually are kind of reopening up, and we will be offering an on-site STEAM camp, right, last week of July and first 2 weeks of August. So these will be Monday through Friday there at our kind of Intelligence Planet Orange County location. And as I mentioned, but just kind of a summary of all of the weeks, we have 3 weeks. We really want students to join for all 3 weeks, right? And we will kind of build on the topics. It's not required to join for all of the topics, but we have math in the morning and then these different STEAM topics in the afternoon. So here in this video, we learned a little bit more about this week 1 STEAM topic of English writing with creative stories. And right, you can find more information in the kind of description below. So there's some links for registration, links to kind of the other topics and other videos here as well. But in week 2, then we'll be doing some stuff with coding and the Scratch programming language. And week 3, talking a little bit about web design and kind of website publishing as well. So hopefully I will see you guys during the STEAM camp this summer. Let us know in the comments below if you have any questions, and check out the links there for more information and information about registration as well. Goodbye.